On the 40th anniversary of the Six-Day War, I'm going on a journey through Israel's occupied territories.
How old is this boy? 15?
I'll be meeting people on both sides of the divide.
You're going to say I'm a racist. What has Islam given to the world beside oil?
Settlement, 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 settlement.
I stay here. If they want to kill me, they can kill me.
I'll be looking at the human cost of the conflict.
They were beaten to death by Palestinians who took rocks and beat them to death.
And I'll be asking, can Israel's democracy survive its occupation of the Palestinian territories?
She's not supposed to be here. It's a Jewish place.
This is Tel Aviv, Israel's largest city. Strolling along the seafront here, you could be in Europe, you could be in America. West's support for Israel is predicated, at least in part, upon the fact that we think they're a bit like us. The country's a liberal democracy. But 40 years after its illegal, and some would say brutal, occupation of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, can we still say that Israel is part of the Western Club of Nations and a true democracy? That's what I'm here to find out. At the outset, I must confess myself to be an ardent admirer of the State of Israel. I believe the Israelis have created a modern, efficient, prosperous country in the midst of a sea of backward, corrupt, incompetent Arab dictatorships. I wanted to test whether my instinctive sympathy for the Israelis in their conflict with the Arabs was justified by travelling through the West Bank, where Israeli democracy is under the most strain. June marks the 40th anniversary of the Six-Day War. In an extraordinary campaign, the Israelis defeated Syria, Egypt and Jordan. As a result of the conflict, Israel took over the Gaza Strip, the Golan Heights and the West Bank. The Six-Day War left a pleasantly surprised Israel in possession of rather more land than it had had before. And the challenge then was to incorporate this vast new mass of disconsolate and rebellious Palestinians from the lands which it had conquered into a democratic and Jewish Israeli state. Israel's founder, David Ben-Gurion, had always warned that the expansion of Israel to include the Palestinian territories would place huge strain on Israel's nascent democracy. Have the years since 1967 proved him to be right? Before entering the West Bank, I needed to pick up a Palestinian guide. I'd arranged to meet one in the old city of Jerusalem, which was annexed by Israel in 1967, but which Palestinians still claim as their capital. My guide was late, for reasons that I was to become painfully familiar with.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. I'm Rod. You had trouble getting here?
Yeah, I'm sorry for being late. I had to pass
No
my
problem. What happened?
checkpoint.
Elias had been stopped at an Israeli checkpoint as he travelled out of the West Bank from his home in Bethlehem.
How often does this happen?
You never know. It might take you 10 minutes, might take you 1 hour.
It's a bit of an inconvenience for your day.
Yeah, you know, since more than 6 months I've not been here. Because of, I cannot take my car, I need to have permission, a magnet card. And
You need permission to do what?
to come to Jerusalem, you know.
Why do you need permission to come to Jerusalem? You live in this
This is the
country.
occupation, you know. This is the occupation. Go inside and...
As a West Banker, Elias is allowed to enter Jerusalem only because, as well as being a human rights worker, he's also a tour guide. This felt like a very different country from the one I'd left behind in Tel Aviv, and indeed the rest of the world thinks it is. My aim on this journey was not to film riots or confrontations. I wanted to see what everyday life was like for ordinary people, both Jews and Palestinians living in the West Bank. Elias took me first to Kalandia, the main checkpoint controlling access between the West Bank and Jerusalem. Who's allowed in and who's not?
At this, like in cars, it's only people who have Jerusalem ID and Israeli ID. For West Bankers like me, I have to go through that terminal, which for pedestrians.
What, that one over there?
Yeah, exactly. They have to present my ID, my permission, my magnetic card.
Checkpoints like this are a source of humiliation and annoyance for Palestinians.
The way they speak to you is very humiliating. Most of them, you would notice that they are teenagers, 18, 19 years old. Stop, put your hand, where's your ID?
There's quite a heavy military presence here as well, isn't there, Oliver?
Yeah. Always you have, the watching towers, which has...
Guns, presumably, do they?
Ready to shoot.
Palestinians spend a fairly large part of their lives waiting at checkpoints like this. But there is, of course, a reason for them. Various Palestinian groups have repeatedly used suicide bombers to attack Israel. Since 1994, hundreds of Israelis have died in these horrific and barbaric attacks. The violence has fallen since Hamas, the main terrorist organisation, declared an informal ceasefire last year. But it has not stopped entirely, and it might start again. Understandably, the Israelis remain deeply wary of Palestinians entering Israel from the West Bank. They have some reason to be afraid.
Why?
Because there have been atrocities carried out by Palestinians against Israelis, haven't there?
Yeah, but what's the main reason?
Yeah, I don't think you get it.
Okay,
Mate,
I understand their fear.
I understand. That's
I understand their fear. Although they are the one who's causing this fear for themselves.
Well, but they're not, are they? I mean,
yes.
This is a two-way thing. It's all very well for you to come back at every answer and say, yes, but they didn't do that, but they didn't do that. All I'm saying is I can see both sides. That's probably because I'm neither Jewish nor Palestinian. Palestinians believe security is often used as a pretext by the Israelis. And as we drove into the West Bank, I was struck by the fact that the checkpoints continued. Of the more than 500 checkpoints, the vast majority are within Palestinian territory, dividing the Palestinians not from Israel, but from each other.
This is within the West Bank, and we see this checkpoint, partial checkpoint, and you can see how many people are waiting.
This is like an entire country of Heathrow airports. Can't imagine anything worse. I faced a lengthy wait, but then, luckily for me, I'm not a Palestinian. Why are we allowed to the front of the queue? Why are we allowed to do that? Well, I don't understand.
Because we have a good driver.
We have a good driver, yeah. But why were we allowed to do that?
It seems they saw that we are press and...
They saw that we were press because we had a
international,
camera.
yeah.
Why don't you get a camera and just drive around with the camera all the time? Yeah. Wrap around shades, you'd get away with it.
You can do it.
It's absolutely bizarre. Whatever else the checkpoints are, an impenetrable security barrier, they're not. Yeah, sure. Palestinians believe their primary purpose is to ram home the humiliating reality of Israeli occupation. Whatever their justification, the checkpoints clearly compromise that most basic of democratic liberties, freedom of movement. We were headed for Elias's hometown of Bethlehem. The birthplace of Christ once drew thousands of tourists. But I'd come here to see a more modern tourist attraction, the Israeli security barrier, better known simply as the Wall. And there's the back of the wall. That's horrible, isn't it?
I can't imagine. We are sick inside.
We were headed for Bethlehem, where Elias, my Palestinian guide, wanted to show me the new Israeli security barrier. It's stupid construction, isn't it?
It's so ugly.
So ugly. The wall was built to close off the West Bank from the rest of Israel, but it does not follow the line of the 1967 border. Instead, it twists and turns deep within Palestinian territory. Its tortuous, circuitous route has left Bethlehem virtually enclosed. We went to visit one of Elias's neighbours, whose house is surrounded on 3 sides by the wall.